Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the Polarized Podcast. This is a podcast about movies, polarizing movies, matter of fact, and polarizing in the sense of Rotten Tomato scores. Sometimes critics love it, sometimes audiences hate it, or vice versa. Those are the movies that we cover on this pod today and forever. Yeah, this is what it's always going to be. So just buckle up. I mean, get ready for that. I am your host. I'm one of the hosts of said pod. And right now, I'd like to introduce my other host, my co host. We also like to refer to him as the forever guest, Mr. James Lindsay. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how are you? It's me, James Lindsay, and you are the Brandini.
I am the Brandini, and you know what?
I reintroduced you. I did the Uno reverse card.
You know what? I would have to say
you.
I'm kind of a,
no, you.
No, you.
No, you.
Stop it.
No, introduce
you. I actually kind of feel like a rusty Brandini because I would also like to say, which I haven't said yet.
That's a new cocktail, but okay.
It's the newest cocktail, hottest cocktail in town. We're talking Charlie and the Chocolate Factory today. The 2005 Tim Burton film score, 83% critics, 51% audience. Pew pew, stinky
pew pew on one side and ring-a-ting-ting. Sign me up for more of that, please, from the critics on this one. From the critics. It's a critically favored movie. And I'll get into it later, but I did notice the Amazon Prime reviews were very positive in the audience side as well. So for whatever reason on the Rotten Tomatoes, audience is like, no spank you.
Right. Oh, interesting. I wonder why. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I don't get it.
Okay, but I don't get it either. And the thing that makes sense though to me, what doesn't make sense is that the critics like this movie.
Yeah, I would expect it to be switched.
Crazy. Me too, man. I definitely expected this to be switched.
This is something we usually talk about like a little bit later in the podcast, I feel like, but I'm curious like why you think that is. Like the critics were so down on this. You think they were still feeling that Tim Burton sort of juice, the director juice that didn't quite run dry at this point in terms of like things that were visually pleasing to the eyes and not completely all blown out with green screen and CGI and everything. Because what was before Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
It was Big Fish.
And I love that movie. That was like the most improved player on my Tim Burton. If I had a tier list or a ranking or whatever, Big Fish would, because I didn't see it when it came out and I kind of just wrote it off, and then I finally saw it. And I'm kind of glad that I waited till I was a little bit older to watch it, because then it hit me like a fucking freight train.
A ton of bricks.
Each and every time I watch it. But that one is one of his best ones for sure. And this one is, I think, the beginning to the latter half of his career. I feel like it's grown to be like half of his movies look like this now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other half look a little bit more like Big Fish, because if you're telling me that's what's before this is the dividing line between those two movies is how these two movies look completely different.
Also too, like,
and about different things, of course.
Big Fish is a great dividing line because it is such a different thing. It's such a different movie in comparison to his other movies leading up to this point. And
kind of Oscar baby a little bit, yeah.
A little, yeah, because it's very like.
And then you have like Sleepy Hollow probably before that, right?
Well, Planet of the Apes before that. Which was,
shit. Yeah, but then I like Sweeney Todd. I don't know.
Me too. Yeah, me too. I think Sweeney Todd does the visuals that this movie's trying to do better.
I agree.
A lot, and maybe it's just because of the technology.
And the muddy gray darkness lends itself to just like being backdrop for the actors and the people to stand on the stage and sing their song. And and that's the action in that movie for the most part. The couple slices and a couple days.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, big plot point there.
Yeah.
I like Sweeney Todd too, man. I like the songs in that.
Brandini's Miracle Elixir. Little bit of high noon Aperol Spritz.
Yeah.
Okay.
Woo!
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's bank that one because that's a banger.
And I mean, the music there is not written the same. I was trying to think of like going into this because I think you and I know I do. I relish the times when we get to have a musical to talk about on our podcast.
Me too.
And I feel like
I've really grown to enjoy it. Yeah.
I've always liked musicals and I've always liked horror movies. I think being able to sit down and talk about them with you in this podcast have kind of made those genres I've loved even more and more and I feel like I've gotten to know both a lot more. Musicals and horror are completely different, but those are a little bit of blind spots. Some of like the more like essentials, and I feel like I've grown those out a bit more and seen more of those kinds of movies since starting this podcast as well. And it's a bummer that starting this episode, I was like, what song would I want to listen to? And I have this Augustus Gloop one on ready whenever we want to hear a little song if we want to, but it's like that's if even starting from that bass element and starting there, and also inevitably we are going to compare it to the original, and if we're starting
now we actually have another comparison that we're going to talk about as well.
I'd be happy to lump that into this as well, the new Wonka movie, which we've both seen, and you know we won't. There's nothing really intense to spoil. It has a similar ending to The Curse, and I won't say why for anyone who might be wondering.
I haven't yet.
And the reasons might surprise you.
Okay.
But the music of all three, I found myself thoroughly just charmed by the new one, and the music that they instilled in that one was subtle and not too show tunesy in a way that was taking away from the more innocence and purity of the characters and everything. It seemed to be more like the carnival sort of aspect to it, a little bit of someone, you know, kind of rolling into town and opening up a fun house. I don't know, all that stuff was
100%
was really, really great. And just like delicate, like gentle, soft music. This is just like glue, glasses, glue, and then it 5 different songs on top of each other start going. And then the original, which I watched again, I watched all 3 leading up to this recording and everything, and I just you can't discredit how wonderful every single song except for Cheer Up Charlie. I think that's like everyone has agreed upon skipping over that one. But even that one I would probably rather listen to over. I still can like sing it and know a little bit of it rather than this one where it's like I can't even do. Let's do a little taste just because we've been talking about it and we can get on with our conversation, and we'll and then, or if there's any other songs that you're thinking of, just shout them out in the chat.
The Veruca song was my favorite.
Oh, is that the one that kind of gets a little Beatles?
Yeah,
it gets a little Beatles with your little round glasses. You should be wearing your round glasses for that song. Okay, this is the whole lead up to it. I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit here.
Occasion, of course, they haven't had a fresh audience in many a movie.
Man. Yeah, this was a huge song for the promotion.
The introduction, you know, and it
all looks terrible.
Yeah, you're right.
Augustus Gloop, the great bakery nincompoop. Augustus Gloop, so big and vile, so greedy, foul, and infantile. Come on, we cry, the tide is right, the sand shooting up the pipe. But don't dear children be alarmed. Augustus Gloop. Gloop will not be harmed. Augustus Gloop will not be
I don't know what it is. This one is like the least offensive to me, I feel like. I guess the Veruca one. But visually it just kind of it's in my mind it's these concept art images that they storyboarded out with Tim Burton, and he had gotten to this blank check, if you will, period in his
right.
era of filmmaking, where they just looked at all the storyboards and they told him, like, if this is what you want, we'll throw all the money at it to make it exactly in your mind how you want it to look. And he didn't need to cut any corners. He didn't need to get practical with too much. He did with other things. He spent a lot of money on getting practical with training squirrels, which we saw a little bit of before recording.
So but kooky.
But it seems like just whatever he storyboarded out, they just sort of like, we'll make it happen in post.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's some visual stuff in this movie that is cool. Like a lot of the stuff with Charlie's house.
I like that.
I think the factory exterior is interesting. It just doesn't go with
Christopher Lee's house in the snow. I like that a lot.
Oh, love that a lot. Yeah, there's some stuff visually in this, but I agree with you regardless about, this is a point in his career where, and I mean, just to speak to him in general, is like he started as like an animation guy. Like he was, or his whole shtick has been the visuals of a Tim Burton movie are very distinct and
stylized.
It has been super stylized. It's his calling card. It's just it's what he's about, and that definitely is on display here in the movie. But man, there's just also times where to the blank check point of it, it's like just because you can doesn't mean you should. I was going to start getting into the movie plotting of it, but before I do that, I mean, I just want to establish between the two of us of like, when you think about a successful Wonka movie now at this point, like you've brought up naturally, the songs being a big part of it. Mind you, this comes from a kid's book, so obviously songs aren't like a necessity when you're I guess adapting this into a movie, but because of the very first one with Gene Wilder, like it's now a staple of it that it is a musical by and large, which then I think really well reaches its actualization in the newest one. That is it is the most musical of all of them, and it does it really successfully because it's a musical in the sense that like major plot points kind of get sung, and those songs are like big and fun and go into character stuff and really hits the spot. It hits the mark on, if you think Wonka is, because of who he is as a character, him being this like magical ringleader, like larger than life kooky character, it's understandable why you would think music from the get-go, from the early one, why you would think music would be a good fit for this, because him being a ringleader type person would be, kind of conducting this whole like, oh, and now this song and now that song and all of that. But other, kind of Wonka-isms or things a Wonka movie should have too is it's like the factory of it all, like how the chocolate is getting made. Like that whole just chocolate, I guess, maybe like really highlighting what candy means to children, what candy means, like how it fits in the world, and establishing that.
Consumerism. I mean, the first one was
for sure,
was very cynical in that way and had a lot of the dry British humor that I had forgotten about.
Right.
And then it was fun. A few years back, I went to the Hollywood Bowl here in Los Angeles and went and saw an orchestra play the music live to the movie as I watched it in a beautiful amphitheater, and they passed out little cards, scratch and sniff cards, and you would scratch and sniff. There would be like, okay, now scratch your card at this moment. And you would smell like certain things in the movie,
God,
like snozberries, of course, and you scratch a snozberry and it smelled like snozberry. Is very fun. What was my bigger point? I forget.
Yeah, chocolate and candy in the movie. Like
I had forgotten that the cynicism and the consumerism and the satire that had been prevalent in that original one that it was poking at, because there's this whole montage when it's announced about the tickets of everyone just going bananas for it, and then shaming Charlie at school and all this stuff, and then like the counterfeit ticket and everything, and the Slugworth stuff, which isn't, the Slugworth thing isn't a thing in this one. It just, they kind of right.
Yeah, you Slugworth being like the other chocolate.
Yeah, and then that's like the trick that Willy Wonka plays, because it's not actually Slugworth, it's just him testing them to see if they're trustworthy, and then at the end,
like spies, because there's that whole part of the movie where and it gets into it, but man,
it gets more into the father thing with Willy Wonka in this one, which I think that's the interchangeable kind of stuff there, and where the first one, jumping head, but how it just fucking like ends in this like just most joyful the happiest moment right at the very end, like everything is wrapped up so fucking quickly. Like he gets mad at first, and he's like, you stole fucking fizzy lifting drinks and you signed a contract, you get nothing, good day, sir. I love that moment. And he has all like half stuff in his office. Sorry, I'm just talking about this movie, but and then they launch off in the glass elevator. He's just like, can my family stay? Not like, I don't know. I didn't have a good I don't have a good relationship with my father. So that's going to be a whole another 20 minutes to the movie, because I'm not a well-adjusted person. And Gene Wilder's like, well, of course, Charlie, more the merrier. And then take with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. And then it's like, oh my God, I feel the best after this movie. Right. Just flying off on a glass elevator to the song, and everyone's going to be living happily ever after. And Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, he's just like, fuck your family, and then they separate, and then they got to figure their own shit out and come back together, to the avail of Willy Wonka as a character and getting more into his backstory, which there is a way to do it. Wonka does it. Timothy Chalamet, but that's propelling the story forward in a way and not looking back too long. Because and with Wonka and Timothy Chalamet, like there's definitely backstory, but it doesn't dwell on it in a way that hinges the movie up in the third act, which is what happens in this one.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the reason for the father stuff and the way that it's portrayed, which is it was so crazy to watch this movie, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and be like, oh, so after everything, we're going to tackle the father stuff and just tack on the father stuff.
It seems like, so sure,
it's interspersed. Absolutely, in the movie, but what is like the actual conflict and the resolution are all tacked on at the end, and the
conflict is so like basic and obvious of like, oh, he had a dentist father that hated chocolate. Big surprise. Like, I know, it was just so obvious, and I get that it's, I don't know, maybe it's like a folk tale or whatever. It's a
kid story.
Burton's trying to play it out and everything, and like, oh, he was trying to teach him a lesson about how bad candy was, and he was just such a villainous sort of evil and all that, but he ended up being proud at the end. And it didn't do much for me, because it was so like tacked on and just hit the very flat basic notes of like, oh, he hated him and now he's proud of him, like, or he hated chocolate and kid loved chocolate and made it his whole life, and now the father's proud of him. I don't know, it's just very basic, not worth it.
But it's also representative of Tim Burton, like ethos and where he's coming from, because it is, so relate. It's like the most Tim Burton like himself in the movie,
like Edward
almost.
Scissorhands,
Like Edward Scissorhands, where Tim Burton grew up as essentially an emo kid to a father who didn't understand him,
or goth kid,
or a goth kid. Well, yeah,
I don't know.
I
guess he's pretty old. No, he's even older.
People might come after me for that.
Maybe just punk in general. He's a little punk. He's a little,
but nonetheless, like different.
He's a little hooligan.
His
Maybe
dad, I'm sure, would have described him as like a weird or different kid, and it is something that obviously has been such a major influence in Tim Burton's life, as the reason that he has these very dark and morose like aesthetics to his movies is because of this being a misunderstood creative type that essentially grew up with. I think his dad was like a salesman or some like office corporate job.
Yeah, he definitely has ideas about 50s idyllic American dream sort of America, and doing riffs on that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, and it's so interesting to think about all three of the movies coming from the like director, like what the director cares about and how that manifests itself in the movie. Because with the Wonka movie, it is just so clear the place that like the voice, like where it's coming from and what it believes about or how it views the world. And it just has such a more like, not optimistic, but it has such a more like bursting with joy.
Which one? The newest one, or
the newest one? Yeah,
definitely
the newest one.
Optimistic, yeah.
And
and it's dealing with, there's sad stuff in that one for sure too.
There is for sure the sad stuff. The thing about,
but it's poignant, and they handle it very delicately.
They handle it so fucking well in my mind. Like all of the stuff that about his mother in the Wonka movie, the new one, like just wanting to be this person that has, like living up to expectations from a parent, and like, what that means, and reconciling with your own destiny. Just, wow, really crushes a lot of that, where by the end of it, it just had me in the palm of its hand, where I was like, so into I was so behind Wonka. I was so on his side. And this movie, I am not on Wonka's side at all. Like, he's weird, mean, like just crazy, unlikable.
At this point, to propagate and to have him portray himself like that, and then go into his character even more so than the Gene Wilder one, just gets it backwards and wrong in a way, because it really does seem reverse, where Gene Wilder seems like approachable, but then once you get into it with him, it's like almost like, are we having two different conversations right now? But his eyes are gentle and he's smiling, but then you realize the content of what he's saying and everything that he's doing is kind of just like, oh, he's kind of treating me like, or like deep down, or like he's being a little stinker, and he's fucking with me, and he's goofing, but he's doing it in like a tongue-in-cheek sort of fun, like we're saying, like a hooligan at a circus or something, like a ringleader, and just doing little fun tricks. But then there is a coldness in there, and there's a calculated sort of way of his being as well. But then it all falls down at the end, and I'm restating that in that one, because when it does, he is so joyful and happy, and that's what's inside, and he's willing to show that vulnerable side.
Right.
But this is who Willy Wonka is through and through on this one. So when he's showing you cold and calculated on the outside, he is that on the inside as well. And there is no difference. And at the end, when he does, it's just like, no, this is just who he is and who he's been. And to take that character and to try and get into him more is just upsetting, when Gene Wilder is like, I would rather get into him more, Gene Wilder, but I like the mystery of it all. And even with this one, it's like, with how weird this guy is, you would just be like, yeah, let's just be satisfied with the fucking mystery of how weird this dude is. We don't really need to get to know any more about it or whatever. Like, even seeing him in like the headgear and in a normal sort of town and all that stuff, I'm like, really? I don't know. You seem like you came from the moon. Like, no way. Like, you just grew up like down the street. Get out of here. Like, what? Like, I'm not satisfied with this explanation. We get a little bit of him going to the Oompa Loompa land. We get some of that.
Yeah,
I kind of remember that from the book too.
I just remember so much of the release of this movie and going to see this movie in the theater. Weirdly, it's a big deal. It was such a huge deal growing up because
it wasn't in 3D, was it?
I don't remember. But yeah, like it being pitched as this darker Wonka movie and getting into generating excitement in our demographic because it's not going to be a kids movie. It's going to be like a darker take on something. And
it's where the emo thing makes sense, like you said earlier, because all the Hot Topic kids were just, jumping for joy.
Yeah. But man, it's so weird.
The guy who did Corpse Bride?
Nightmare Before Christmas. Edward Scissorhands? That's my favorite movie. Yeah, but isn't it so interesting, like watching a movie like this now at a later point in our lives, where that stuff sucks, is like kind of grating for it to just be so like edgelordy a little bit.
Seems like it's overcompensating a bit.
Right. It's so, there's such a weird unassuredness of itself, of like, what do we care about? Do we care about anything? Like, and just that almost that conundrum that goth and emo kids run into. It's like, you want love. We all want love, but then the way that you express it is like, well, you can't, I've been burned so many times, or I have such a complicated relationship with just other human beings, so I don't know how to express that. And you get, you really just get an idea, like, it's very Edward Scissorhands. Like, here is a guy that, wants to find connection, but doesn't know how. And it does it in a
he's
very
kind of both Edward Scissorhands and Vincent Price in that movie, because he's like the factory owner and like the boy in a way. I don't know.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like,
just like Tim Burton.
Yeah. So this movie,
yeah, I mean, how did you think that opening montage looked of the factory making of the chocolate?
Oh, I mean, it's so Tim Burton-y. It's this fucking...
If the music at that point really... the music at that point felt like Mars Attacks.
Yeah.
There was like a lot of the... I guess it's naturally a theremin, like... Like where you like this is a kooky movie you're about to watch, and the effects are very of the time, and
yes, they don't look great now.
Do not really hold up.
No, and I think the biggest problem with them,
it sucks that it's all like automated chocolate being made and everything. You're just like,
right,
this is already telling me that this isn't, I don't know, it's all cold and machines.
It's very cold. The Rube Goldberg machines that make the chocolate. It's all CGI. I just really despise how it is so clear that there will be a portion of a machine doing something, but it's going into nothingness. So it's just everything is not grounded to the world. It's just, here's a conveyor belt going into blackness. Here are things holding a thing, spinning around to no end, essentially. And it just sets you in the mood of this movie, I guess. But man, from the beginning, I'm like, I do not care for the vibe of this. Where again, like you said, it's so cold. It's so CGI. But the Danny Elfman score, right, is kind of cool. If
you're into the Danny Elfman of it all, it's like it's a very quintessential Danny Elfman score. Like it's hitting that in the most exacting sort of way. And I just thought it sounded a little extraterrestrial at some point with some of those noises, but it's bringing you into the vibe of the movie. And then you get to the house, which is like conceptually like looks really cool as a shot of like all these uniform buildings, which is just like, like a lot of gray and it's kind of drab and it looks boring and like it's rough to look at, but it's almost worth it to see like the contrast of Charlie's house amidst it all. Is like I get the idea that he's trying to elicit, and that is like the Edward Scissorhands of like all these little boxes of houses. Then there's just one weird fucked up one, or there's a castle way up on a hill, and this is where this character is, and and you get his take on the grandparents in the bed and having celery soup, and Helena Bonham Carter killing it. I don't know. We got Grandpa Joe. We got you. He's pretty good. Can't say
I love Grandpa Joe. He's my favorite part of the movie.
Can't recall him from much else. I like his stories of being a worker in the factory. I like that moment. I thought that was good. Getting a little. I like that idea of getting glimpses of Wonka. I don't want all like the backstory of him growing up and daddy dentist. Just like, he gave me this chocolate that turned into a fucking bird in my mouth, and just like, ooh, that gives me just a little something to go off of, like to titillate the mystery of it all. And then the other thing that I thought was really funny this time, and I remember I recall in the theaters people laughing too. Of he's like, okay, go out and buy me a bar of chocolate, Charlie, and he's like, okay, I'll be right back. He's like, okay. And then it like slowly fades off into black. And Charlie's like, Grandpa, I'm back. And then he just like, he wakes up, and he like cut the editing and the pacing of that. It was perfect of him like falling asleep and waking up. Like it really felt like taking a nap and waking up and being like, wait, how much time passed? What the hell? That was great.
What the hell? I mean,
and then his dance, his little like,
trust. I'm a big Grandpa Joe dance fan because it just goes to like why he, in my mind, is my favorite, because he provides actual joy and wonder. I know that Charlie is relatively good about that, of being like, oh wow, like, oh man, I love chocolate, and like I know life sucks, but like, man, getting to share these little nuggets of sweetness in life are something to cherish and something to strive to like.
Much better than original Grandpa Joe. Are you aware of the subreddit Grandpa Joe hate?
Oh no, of the original? No, but I could understand why, because he's kind of a curmudgeon, right?
There's a whole subreddit of people just dunking on Grandpa Joe and telling how shitty of a person he is, and all said like, oh, you got the golden ticket, also you can get out of the bed and help out a little bit around the house, huh?
Right.
That kind of thing.
He kind of looks mean too. This guy,
they were like,
on the other hand,
using the money for his tobacco and stuff. It was like, motherfucker, like they having celery soup. It's Charlie's birthday.
Charlie's goddamn birthday.
It's Charlie's birthday. No tobacco for you, Grandpa Joe. You stole Wizzy lifting drinks. Good day, sir.
I thought it was so funny when he was telling the story about working in the factory to Charlie. He said he was a much younger man, but it's
that was good. That was good.
It's like, oh, funny.
Yeah, I like that.
That's all. That lands. That typically is a joke that'll get me when somebody is like the same age in their like.
That's some good stuff. The visual stuff is good, and then the arc of the father, I thought, was pretty good too, of like him getting replaced by the robot and then getting a job fixing the robot. That was fun. Nice little arc for him to like land on his own feet in his own way, that was apart from the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and all that stuff. Like they still got to take the house and live there and all that stuff, but he was He's like, all right, I'm going to go work at the toothpaste factory right down the street. We keep each other in business, us two.
Yeah, we got the biggest chocolate factory in the world and a big toothpaste factory.
Where do they live?
Wow. Really just.
And why is everything so sad?
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing that you brought up earlier.
Because people steal
the commentary on the England in that time. Even though I don't know if they say where they are, really in this movie.
It's England. I mean, all the houses and everything, in the flats. I don't know. It does reek of that, but it's so fake, And you see the original. It's just he's just in a town and he's a normal kid. I don't know. This is some. It's already telling you fantasy before you've gotten into the chocolate factory. It's already just screaming this is some fantasy world before you've even walked in the door. And I like how normal everything is. And I'm sorry, I'm relating and everything. But even in the newest one too, it's just and there's a shopping mall and magical things happen around them, and there's magic. And there is a magic in the air, magic between them, and there's and it's all fun, and it's all for fun, and
that's the biggest difference, right?
It'll bite you in the ass if you're an asshole occasionally, whatever.
I mean that's where this movie, in my mind, is the worser of the three, because this movie isn't fun. It is really it's pessimistic and mean. And just hates its characters. It's so wild to me, that approach that a director can have on material, because there is a place that it's coming from in deciphering the text to the movie, that you could get to that conclusion, because Roald Dahl is kind of an asshole, or is an asshole, was a huge asshole. Came out saying that he actually kind of hates kids, but what is it? He's he actually hates kids, but he likes writing about kids to teach them not to be shits, is kind of the vibe that I got from him. He knows how to write kid stories well, because he's sees the bad behaviors that people exhibit as adults coming from being bad kids, and he's able to just make those connections to creating characters in which that's the case of creating these shits of kids, and to tell other
and also
kids
you
not
only
to
live
be
twice,
like
baby.
them. I know, right? That whole situation's so crazy how they just
switch.
I'll write one for you, you write one for me.
Hey, Rose, why don't you come over here and write one of my stories?
Yes. Them being friends too, him and Ian Fleming, is hilarious too, because it also speaks to their character, because it's both British men who've served in the army that are raging alcoholics and pessimists after it, and just have such a such a fucked up way of looking at the world, but both are imaginative and found, I guess, what they were best at, which kudos to them.
I read the Elevator sequel as a kid, and I remember that being bonkers, but I all I remember is that it was bonkers, but I don't remember too much. I remember the grandparents come along too, and they just travel the fucking universe. It's weird, and written by him as well. Moving on in this movie, Brandon's just walking away for a second, so I'll just lay out a little more plot here. So we get into the gold ticket of it all. Oh wait, there's this moment. Brandon's back. There's this moment when they're talking about Willy Wonka, I think kind of during the first announcing of the golden tickets, where and this just cracked me up so hard this time, because this movie had come out before this other movie when I used to watch this movie a bunch on DVD. But after Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, and that line about you can't can't build you a house of chocolate or
yeah.
It'll melt in the sun. And there's a whole sub story in this movie about this must have been from the book too, because it just really felt
Maharaja.
like just like builds a whole palace of chocolate. He's like, well, you better start eating.
Right, and then they just
that was pretty. What was crazy is like that was pretty practical. You look in the background and there's like a fuzziness and a haze to some of the stuff, and there's the color correction is fucking awful at this. And Alice in Wonderland is a whole nother level, but this one at least has some like practical stuff. But then they color correct it to make it all clean, and it just ends up making everything look like kind of shitty. But watching some behind the scenes stuff today, man, they had this whole fucking thing stage set up with a bunch of brown melting goo just coming off the walls and them sitting right in the middle. It was like, this is like pretty much happening like practically. That surprised me. The stuff that was practical,
I mean,
looks
that's
kind of the craziest. But that was a funny story, and you cannot build a house of chocolate. It'll melt in the sun.
It will melt in the sun. Oh, them just getting covered.
Not if it never rains.
Not if it never. I think I'm doing pretty well for a 14-year-old with a wife and 2 kids.
But yeah, then we get all the golden tickets. I mean, this kind of goes by the numbers of the first one pretty well, especially with all the Violet stuff and like the fact, like all the all the girls, like all the ladies, like unwrapping everything. And that's like, there's that. And behind the scenes stuff was just interesting. A little bit of that where like there's a big room of all these people unwrapping all these chocolates. And there's just someone with a megaphone going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because there's columns of people taking boxes out, opening them, passing them, and then moving to the next one. And down the column of line of people, they want it all to be symmetrical and uniform and everyone doing things at the same time. So on 3, you grab that box. On 5, you open the box. On 7, you go to the next box. So everyone down the line is all doing the same thing. And that was pretty cool to see. You know, this is a big operation. I remember, this movie coming out was just a big deal. And to see some of that stuff leading into it, and Tim Burton taking on this big thing is like, must have been a lot. And there's Mike TV, Augustus Gloop. We got all our guys. We got who's the gum chewing lass?
Veruca.
That's Veruca. And then Violet. Veruca and Violet. Right? Beauregard. Veruca with the gum chewing. Her mom's in a lot of stuff. I like her.
Yeah, me too. She's funny.
She's a good actor. She knows how to just do these big eyes and the smile that just lights up a room.
She's got these eyes.
And then they get into the factory and like how about that song when they am I going barreling too far ahead?
No, barrel through it. I mean,
it reminded me kind of another Spy Kids Floop as a madman, help us save us moment. Willy Wonka. And then when you had the DVD and you started that bad boy up after you got to the menu, or like the menu would start and be like, Willy Wonka. And then they would like open up and be like, here's all the buttons, play, special features. And it would just be having that like playing in the background. Like, play the movie. I don't want to hear the song anymore. Or you would watch the whole movie and fall asleep at the end during the credits, and then you'd wake up to the DVD menu. Do you remember those days, Brandon?
I do.
And you'd wake up to just like the loop of just like, Willy Wonka, or whatever the movie might be.
DVD menus.
DVD menus.
The days.
What a time. That was something that... there's certain parts I remember being in the theater and having like... feeling people's reactions, and that was one where people were like, what is this?
What is going
the same as everyone, all the other people, the characters on screen, everyone was just feeling the same thing in the theater. I think of just like, oh, what?
Absolutely.
Hashtag random at the time, I think.
Hashtag what random. Of course they would, because Johnny Depp's performance is an insane performance.
Yeah, here we go. Let's
he has a voice he has this whole him smiling in a like I don't understand look. The intro to him is wild to me because it is the puppets or marionettes or whatever you would call them,
Yeah.
just burning, just lighting on, getting lit on fire, very dark, very scary. Even like his entrance is like, oh, this is a psychopath. And
I guess that's
the performance
Tim Burton's version of walking normal and then falling, but getting back up and everything's fine is a song and then burning down, but then it doesn't get back up and everything's fine. It just burns down.
Ugh.
And then the getting back up, I guess, is just like, oh, there's Willy Wonka. And it's such a weird pacing of it all.
It is.
Because he's, it just pans over and he's just there.
Yeah, he's like standing next to him like, oh, isn't this so, crazy? Isn't this so funny and quirky that...
And they're like, who are you? And he's like, yeah, it's me.
It's me. I'm Willy Wonka.
It almost made me feel like at the time, I was like, is he just trying to do as much opposite of Jack Sparrow as he can?
Right.
Maybe that's being too, like, I don't know. Maybe that's simplifying it too much. Because where is the inspiration coming from? Because it definitely feels Michael Jackson-y.
Yeah, it does.
Like that's too easy. But it's just like bringing kids into his factory to Never Never Land. I don't know.
Right.
Is that too easy? And I remember people at the time, because Michael Jackson and his, all his shit at that time was like very much in the news and people were talking about it. So to do a riff on him as a character was a take. And I remember people being like, wow, he's doing like a Michael Jackson thing.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, this would have been around that time where it's like, hee hee,
all the South Park shit,
all the South Park stuff. He has, it's Johnny Depp is really, really running with this character and performance and wanting to make it very unique. And I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact of like the Gene Wilder trying to be, Gene Wilder setting the standard and trying to elevate that.
You just have to go completely different, I think, as Johnny Depp's idea. It's like, I can't do that version any better, so I have to go completely, completely different. But is it coming from Johnny Depp? Is it coming from Tim Burton? The idea and the whole gooey center of who that character is and how they portray themselves and the comedic timing of it all is like there, and sometimes it hits, but mostly it's just uncomfortable and unsettling and not fun to be around. He's not a fun character to be around. And Gene Wilder, even when he is a prick, like he'll say something and kind of like, like you can tell he's kind of an asshole. But then that comes from a place of he's like a hermit or whatever. He's like this weird eclectic dude that is doesn't relate with people. But with Johnny Depp, he seems almost like, and I don't know if is he intimidating? Is he just
standoffish for sure?
Standoffish, like
very standoffish. Yeah, absolutely. Like,
I get that idea
so
of like
alien.
He never developed as a child and he never grew up. So I think there's that idea of like he is still an adolescent in his mind, and but that's where I think again it still makes me go back to the Michael Jackson of it all, because he gets the gray hair, and when he gets that gray hair, that's the whole impetus for him to like make the whole golden ticket thing, is because he's got this gray hair and he's getting old and all that stuff, and he doesn't want to get old. I don't know. It's just it's batshit. I think it'll go down as like one of the most batshit performances that was okayed and put to screen by a fucking lot of money and a lot of people that were all like, "Yep, I mean it's Johnny Depp. We got Johnny Depp on our movie. He's Jack Sparrow. Right. He can do whatever the hell he wants. Everyone on Disney told him, hey, you can't do that Keith Richards impression for our Pirates movie. That's bad shit. And he's like, you got to trust me. And it paid off. So, I mean, if he could do that for that one, then we just got to be able to do it for this. And Dark Shadows is going to work out great. And everything's going to be, Mordecai is going to be awesome. We're going to love Johnny Depp forever.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Believe in him. He understands what this movie needs. And Tim Burton for that matter too. I mean, God, yeah, it's hard to say no to a Johnny Depp, Tim Burton.
Yeah. At this back together.
Because they've just, they have a track record of success. And so people, are really, I mean, and again, just to bring it back, like the critics enjoyed this performance. I mean, we're kind of lauding it, but I mean, the critics liked this performance. They thought it was a unique and fresh take, essentially, of this character, which is just baffling to me because our problem with it is something I feel like is so simple and fundamental when it comes to critiquing this movie or critiquing any movie is whether or not the character, your main character ostensibly is likable or interesting. And even though he has a lot of flash that would make you think he's interesting, none of it has any backing of substance to it. It's just all kooky, sporadic nonsense at times. Like you're just more like a majority of this movie, I was like, wow, what a choice, and not in a really a positive way. It's like, what a choice as in, like you're just making choices to make choices. It's like a hat on a hat at times where I'm like, this, like I don't. You need to give us a little bit more here about how you actually feel Wonka, because it's just driving me nuts how impenetrable your mind seems to be in a lot of these situations where it calls for you to be like, this is how I feel about these kids and whatnot. It's like, by and large, right off the bat, it's just, I don't like them. I don't really like anybody. Everybody's weird. I'm trying to be a normal person, but I can't be. And just the more and more I think about it, I just continue to just be so baffled by this.
Or at least like Gene Wilder, it seemed Gene Wilder and both Chalamet seem like they're trying to show something to another person and impart something like, hey, let me like show you this world of pure imagination. Like maybe I am a little cynical myself, and maybe I don't see the best in people always, but he's trying to give them a chance at this moment in time. And the whole point of him bringing these people in, I don't know. It's just, you never get an idea that he's trying to show them it in like a way of like, look at how cool this is. It's just like, it seems like he's going through the motions in the tour and everything. And he's just like, come on, let's go. And he's just like, so pleased with his own inventions. And he has in no way like wants to see people's reaction to it, or just like how what it makes people feel. He's just amazed by the engineering of it all and all that. I don't know. It's just it's a different take on a classic tale, and it's very different. And I get the point to want to make it extremely different, but to lose the heart and soul and the fuzzy, gooey center that was just put in another version is just makes it that much clearer that this one didn't do it completely right. And speaking of going through some of these motions, I don't know. So we go through some of these kids and these the classic Oompa Loompa fucked up and now you must pay song, and they go up in the chocolate tube. We heard a little bit of gloop, gloop, Augustus, gloop.
Gloop.
See, now it's in my head. Okay, so that's pretty much all I can remember. Goop, goop, Augustus, gloop. That guy, great performance from the Oompa Loompa. He did a lot of work to do all those different Oompa Loompas. And then, I was going to say,
Viceroy. Right?
What about fucking Freddie Highmore? What a find! That guy, that little kid in this time. What a cute little kid. Just like fucking amazing performance. And then we get them back as a movie I love, a heartbreaking movie that I love is Finding Neverland that they are in together. And I think they're wonderful together in that movie. And that's subtlety in that performance by a Johnny Depp. I don't know. It's a tearjerker, but I enjoyed it. And he was a little youngster in that one too. And I remember he does a really good scene at multiple good scenes, but him crying just makes me so sad in that movie. So yeah, just want to say that like he's awesome.
He's good. Yeah, he's not the problem with this movie. Everyone
else is solid. Yeah,
everybody else is
Christopher
solid.
Lee.
Too.
I mean, come on,
Count Dooku himself.
Chocolate. What is all this chocolate doing here? And caramel. It will get stuck right in your teeth.
Yeah, I like a lot of I don't really have too many complaints about the performances at all. Like just looking through the cast list of, the parents and the kids, like everybody is solid in what is needed of them. It's all, to me, the problem of the writing and the direction and Johnny Depp by and large. But even then, like
even if Johnny Depp had just been like Benny and June style Johnny Depp of like kind of like just a little whimsical little prankster kind of guy with like that would do kind of a deadpan sort of face, but he'd be doing funny stuff on top of it. This is like, hey, what's going on? Hey,
a lot of smiling and just going like, yeah.
The thing that cracked me up this go around for this movie, not much did, but the thing that was really funny that he kept doing was giving Mike TV shit for mumbling.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny.
That is funny. Right.
Oh, Mumberson.
Because it's another example of like, his father's voice coming out in him. Right? Just this idea.
Yeah, and it's a little callback from the first movie too. Because like Gene Wilder at one part in that movie is like, you should really speak up or something like to my TV or something like that. But it's something else he said in that movie. Where it's just like sweet is better, but liquor hits quicker or whatever. That line I completely missed as a kid, but that was like, it cracked me up this time. Because he uses some alcohol in parts of like making the chocolate, or he's like, why do you one of the adults is like, why do you do that? And he's like, God, I gotta find that line. Continue. I can find it, but
no. So the kids, all of them are getting offed one by one. All of the sets for each room, it's very Tim Burton.
Candy is dandy, but liquor is quicker.
Ooh, okay.
And he just like whispers that to one of the dads. As I'm watching, I was like, wait, what?
Dads get it.
Dads I just want to like get drunk with fucking Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka.
Oh, Gene Wilder's the best.
He's the man.
The man. He's the GOAT. Yeah, sets in the chocolate factory, pretty stunning at times. It's just fraught with, scenes will either in transit or certain scenes just in general are very CGI. When they're in places of the factory where there are like actual machines and they're interacting with it, it's great, but nonetheless, it's always inescapable, this like weird sheen that is on stuff. Like all of the kids' faces look plasticky and it's dark and just God, the visual
there's like the spatial like design between everything is like there's a lot of space between everything. And like you were saying, I really like how you described the opening montage, how like how it's constructed doesn't make any logistical sense and everything just like goes into a void. And that's why it's all storyboarded to me. It's just like whatever that little image that Tim Burton wanted it to look like, it just has to look just like that. It doesn't need to make any sense. It could be an Escher painting for all we care.
An Escher painting is
it just as long as it visually like has his style or whatever. But even in like walking into the chocolate water fountain thing, I don't know. It's like there's the bright green and the red, and there's like this, and curving green pastures of edible grass and all that. But then you look in the background, it is just like still it's the like gray warehouse fuzzy factory walls and like the fuzzy green screen effect or of whatever. And I don't know. Some of those little candies they were eating looked pretty fun, but then it like it just everyone's mean to each other. And they like bully poor Charlie, and just like, I'm not having this is supposed to be the fun, everyone's having a good time thing, and poor Charlie. Well, cheer up, Charlie. There's a big blueberry girl, you gotta have that big blueberry girl. Mike TV goes into the TV that set was I thought was pretty cool.
Interesting. Well, yeah, especially that 2001.
Pretty similar. 2001 thing. It's pretty similar to the original.
Where the Wonka bar is the, what is that called? The Black Spire, Black Pillar, what do they call it? Black Obelisk?
Obelisk, I think, is what
Obelisk,
they call it. I think.
And then, 2001 callback, which is so weird to think about from like a kid who's like playing shooting video games that like, I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. I would think you'd want to update that a little bit. Because it's not like you're in,
it's one of those things like kids are just like
kids being like 2001 Space Odyssey.
Oh, Kubrick, yeah, I love Kubrick. Kubrick. I'm 7 years old.
Yeah, that's what the kids are watching. Kubrick films.
Mike TV almost looks like he's Space Baby. I get it.
All right. Yeah, it's just that fucking fuzz on this movie drove me nuts, where everybody just, obviously it kind of helps the poor CGI because everything looks so CGI, but then it's really a drag by the middle end of this movie, where you're like, nothing seems real, even though there are cool real stuff and like machines in scenes. It just can't. Tim Burton himself from doing this, like,
with Violet, we mentioned the squirrels, and that's a situation where you spend all this time getting all these squirrels all trained up and everything, and then you mix them with some fake squirrels and some CG squirrels, and then cover it with this color correction. Everything just ends up looking the same, and so all those real squirrels, I don't know. I guess it must have helped, because if they were all CG, it would have looked much worse. So it did help a bit, but it's a bummer that all that hard work and effort isn't as on display as I would want it to be. It's like, you don't need to see the seams of everything necessarily, but just to be like, wow, that's a real squirrel there, or like, I don't know, those are all real squirrels or whatever. It just that was clear in his older movies. That's the thing. It's like, that's not impossible to have, because he's done that in his career. And when you want something to happen, like in Beetlejuice, it's like, and they open the door and there's a big fucking worm out there and it looks like this. And it's like, we'll make that happen. And, now it probably, and that you look at that now, and back then it's dated, but it has a style and it looks cool and it looks like singular and unique to itself and everything. And this looks so uniform and bland and monotone in a lot of ways. That's the upsetting thing, to see his creative juices being pushed into these conceptual nightmares, where I would appreciate where like more collaboration or something. I don't know what is the answer, or it's totally fine. I don't know. He's able to make exactly what he wants to make, and sometimes it's things like Frankenweenie or something, which is solid too. And then I don't know, and then that was just like seeing all of them walking out of the factory after, with the music, after them flying over the glass elevator. It's just like, things are weird and everyone's changed and everyone's worse off coming out of this factory, and it's not a great feeling. I feel like we kind of covered a good amount of like the father stuff that happens at the end here. So, there's the like, is it twice that it happens where he just runs into the glass elevator door? I remember as a kid thinking that was hilarious. It was pretty funny now, but
it is funny. Yeah.
As a kid, and then the second time, just like, because he's in mid conversation, it's kind of like, okay, let's go, and we're gonna do. And he does kind of have that bookish accent. Is that it? Like the Vampire's Kiss, Nicolas Cage of like, you put the paper in the file, A B C D.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, very well read, very articulate, but in a way that's like nerdish.
Enunciate. Yeah, he's got these teeth. I don't know. We'll never see another thing like it. I wonder if enough time be like you see a new Joker and a Batman be like, I took it from Johnny Depp's Willy Wonka.
Right, totally. Of course, I would not be surprised, man, because
it's that level of character.
It's that level of character. It's that insane of a choice in a major motion picture.
Yeah.
You know, like. More often than not, a person that isn't Johnny Depp is going to be told, hey, tone it down a little bit. We need a little bit more realism in here. You are too out there, too alien. No one is going to be able to understand what you are.
You're weird.
Like where you're coming. Yeah, you're weird.
Well, I'm happy with it.
I'm happy. Let's take a quick break and then get into those little reviewies.
We're gonna take a break. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back, baby. I'm just looking through my notes here real quick before we move on. There's a moment where Violet is asking her father to make time go faster, which I thought was funny. Good morning, starshine. The world says hello. It's quite the line that I remember. Not weird, but just like kooky people in high school would just quote lines from movies and stuff. I would do the same thing. Half of my things I would say was Anchorman or Family Guy. That was my personality. But like, or answer the phone like that. Good morning, starshine. The world says hello. That would be cannibalism, and that's frowned upon. There's this one moment that I thought was really great where young Willy Wonka goes through what appears to be a traveling montage.
I wrote that down to the flags of the world.
Where he's walking around, and then there's all these flags going by, and you think he's just traveling the world. And then the guy's like, "Hey, kid, you got to go. We're closing up." And it's the flags of the world museum. That's a Naked Gun like Zucker Brothers airplane level joke that is just too good. It's too good. Hits. Or like I don't know, like it's like the Ed Wood side of the humor of Tim Burton. I think it's Grandpa says, "Holy buckets!" I like that.
Okay.
And then Christopher Lee, I haven't seen bicuspids like these since. Willie. Willie. Is that you, my little Willie?
A couple of call outs for me from my notes is Deep Roy is the real MVP.
Who's that?
Deep Roy is the guy who plays all of the
Oompa
Loompas. Total
big
MVP.
Time. Yeah, big time.
A lot of the jokes come from him, and he kills it.
Mm-hmm.
Tunnel scene was underwhelming.
I know, right? For how like iconic and weird the first one was.
You're like, oh, okay, we're just in a CGI boat swirling around.
I like the little like vaults, like they look at the different vaults and how they name them. Like stuff like that is fun in these movies.
Right. Yeah,
again, you get little glimpses of like what's possible. And you get a good amount of that in the new Wonka movie, I feel like, too. Just his little, tricks that he's got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I cannot sing the praises of the new Wonka movie enough. I was just emotionally enraptured by that movie. By the end of it, I was like crying, and then I was having a good time. Like the stuff with the mom was like fucking hitting for me. I was like, oh my God, this is so good. Like him just wanting to be the best person for himself, then realizing, but then also reconciling that with his mom's view of him. I was like, man, this is just firing on all fucking cylinders.
I really like the bad guys too. Those 3 bad guys.
I love the bad guys. They're funny.
That like, I think it was the Slugworth dude just had the funniest like smirk on his face when like, but then he also, and these are my favorite types of villains, is when like he looks very evil, but he also looks kind of dumb.
Dumb, yeah.
Because he's like, when he does his smirks and the camera would shoot him head on, he'd be kind of cross-eyed. He'd be like, he'd be like, you're trying to look so threatening, but you look kind of fucking stupid. Is just like some of my favorite antagonists. Cool. Well, should I get into some polarizing reviews?
Go for it.
All right, we'll start with the critic side of things. An 83% certified fresh movie from 2005. Let's check in on some top critics from Rotten Tomatoes. Ken Tucker, New York Magazine /Vulture. As the star who's framed in the center of nearly every shot he's in, Depp is a constantly surprising Willy Wonka. From Sandra Hall, Sydney Morning Herald. Finally, a worthy, excellent remake. From Robert Hanks, Independent, UK. 4 out of 5. In its combination of fidelity to its source and wacky visual ideas, Burton's take is a triumph of common sense and imagination. Exactly the qualities for which we admire children. Common sense. From Stella Papa Miguel, as I'm going to say.
Miguel.
BBC.com says scores 4 out of 4. An intoxicating endorphin rush. What else we got here? From Stephanie Zacharek, Salon.com. In its best sections, it's magically deranged in its best sections, it's magically deranged in a way no other filmmaker could even come close to pulling off. And we'll finish with Claudia Puig from USA Today. Gave it a 3.5 out of 4. The summer's most visually arresting escapist adventure. You know when like the movie was been out for like a week or two, and there's a new trailer with like some banner like 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5 sort of things.
Oh yeah.
Claudia Puig from USA Today says it's summer's most visually arresting escapist adventure. It had to have been in there. So they loved it, certified fresh. And let's check out the audience side of things with the 51% polarizing feelings on everything. This one's a Google review, 1 star from Sam Wall. Sam Wall. Waste of time. Dark and weird. The studio never should have let these group of mentally ill men remake the incredible original. A perfect rendition of the delightful doll book. This a children's movie that children should never watch. Adults should not watch it either. They have better things to do, like raise their children properly and never let them see Johnny Depp in anything. He's a terrible actor who was somehow told early on that being weird is good acting. His psychotic emotional life touches no one except other strange psychotics. He has ADHD, depression. He's bipolar. He's addicted to coke, THC, benzos, Seroquel, cocaine, alcohol, oxycodone, etc., etc., and spends his life, the few years his diseased liver might have left, on a bender violently assaulting people. He needs to be in prison, never on a movie set again, to dry out and pay penance for his violent rages. He thinks paying a staff of goons and thugs $300,000 a month to get him illegal drugs and cover up his messes will continue, but he doesn't have a dime to give those twisted sycophants anymore. Depp is old. His career waned long ago in the mid-2000s when this atrocity came out. Luckily, many of the executives responsible were fired and no longer have careers, and neither does old, fat, ugly Depp. So this is a taste of the power of the internet when you can review something later and include information that was not at the time a thing.
No, yes, because he is not he's not a fat person.
Well, just all this stuff that was clearly influenced from the Amber Heard trial. I feel like, and this is probably, maybe some of these Google reviews have some of that, but he definitely provided his opinion on the movie as well. Let's do a couple more here from Jackie Nisbet Thompson. 1 star.
Mrs.
Nesbit. It's me, Mrs. Nesbit. No. It's tea time.
It's tea time.
My sister and brother-in-law, their like camper rig is named Mrs. Nesbit.
Nesbit, nice.
Yeah. That's like the name of
cool.
their like camper rig. Yeah,
that's so sick.
So like they take trips on Mrs. Nesbit. It's pretty good. Nesbit. That's such a great name. That's another one that's like reminds me of like Ned Schneebly.
Yeah,
That's such a good one. Mike White. All right, so Jackie Nisbet Thompson says, putting this in 1 star because people look at those first. Good strategy.
Wow, great strategy.
See, that's a strategy. I don't understand why bad reviews say the older version is like the book. Let's see. Wrong song lyrics, a huge piece of the plot never happened in the book. Children got eliminated in different ways. The only accurate thing in the older movie was probably the description of Willy Wonka and the names. Not to mention, Roald Dahl hated the 71 version so much, he never let anyone make another movie of one of his books again. Good choice, Roald. Have you seen James and the Giant Peach? The Matilda I watched was okay, but Fantastic Mr. Fox was all wrong.
Oh, stop.
I don't trust this person. Some people are complaining that it's dark. The book was dark. Most Roald Dahl books were dark, and one of his children or grandchildren said that in the beginning of a collection of Roald Dahl books. They were both slightly dark and whimsical, and this movie is incredibly accurate. The only big change was Willy Wonka's backstory, which was weird, but added depth to the character. Johnny Depp to the character. The songs were only changed to be more easily sung. This is an incredibly true to the book movie that I love. You see this too, Brandon? You see this algorithm that this person is messing with?
I know, man. It's so crazy.
Isn't that something about the internet that just messes with? Doesn't see, like, that's where we could be like, this messes with our process of what we're trying to do here. But to me, I think it deepens it, because I think it makes it interesting to find examples like this, like that. These numbers can be misrepresentative of movies in ways that you might not expect. You know, some things are worse than the score is, or some things are better than the score is, and some people are reviewing things for reasons that, are not all
genuine. Yeah, I mean, our format is bulletproof in my mind, because we're not about, like, we at least yet haven't gone with like, it's not a declaration of whether we side with one side or the other. We just come up with our own opinions, and then we're using the scores, the polarizing scores on Rotten Tomatoes as a jumping off point. So, like, there is definitely the scoring system on Rotten Tomato we've talked about before is like not necessarily good litmus test. It can be somewhat directional, but yeah, it isn't necessarily something that you should hold to be like the end all be all. And really, the reason that we're just using it as a really great way to watch movies that, for whatever reason, are polarizing in the sense between critics and audiences, but we're not really about siding with one or the other. You and me just come to our own conclusions and give our own scores, which we're about to do. But, like, yeah, it's funny to think about that score as such a great example of the gamification of the internet by and large, because that person put a 1-star review but liked the movie, and they were forthright by saying the reason that it's 1 star is so that it'll show up closer to the top. And yeah, it's, people will do that. That's the internet for you.
Absolutely, especially if there's a number system, there'll be that's already gamifying it in that way. Let's do one more from Yasmin Kapadia, 1 star. Totally horrible. Should have been rated R. Very gross and gory. Waste of Johnny Depp and a shameful scar on Tim Burton's career. Willy Wonka is like Lex Luthor from Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I'd rather watch that movie. Total mess. Just because all the other kids are spoiled and Charlie is poor, are we supposed to root for him? When the other kids are murdered / deformed, Charlie, Grandpa, Joe, and Wonka are laughing. Horrible movie. Not worth a watch. Cats is better. I'd rather watch Terminator Genesis, and that's saying something. Also, child thinks he / she is about to die. Oompa Loompas are dancing and making fun of the poor kid. Would have been better if it had been an animated film. Oh. Get this person in Hollywood, baby.
Yeah.
Get him in. Was a little smattering, a little taste of the people out there and the critics alike. We talked at the beginning. We're talking now. I think the polarizing nature of it all is, I think, the critics still kind of sniffing the stuff that Tim Burton is smoking, and it's hitting them in a way that is like kooky and weird, and some of the CG stuff I think was held up better at the time, as well as like the whole new take on it was fitting the time as well. This is a very dated movie.
It's very dated.
This movie's very dated. Absolutely. When you are
amazing point.
Inevitably comparing it to a timeless movie. A truly timeless movie is the original. Like as a child, I grew up watching it in the 90s and loving it and laughing and being a little creeped out by some of the kids. Wow, that girl turned into a blueberry. Oh, that kid shrunk down. Like
scary.
It's a little scary. There's a little, and but there's consequences for your actions. These kids were little shits, and you stole fizzy lifting drinks. Good day, sir. But like it's a fable, whatever. It's a folk story. It's a little nighttime story, whatever. It's you consummate, but it doesn't need to. This is when, as well, a lot of things were leading into, it's got to be dark and gritty and realistic, and this is not the kind of thing that needed that treatment. Tim Burton, in terms of like this part of his career moving forward, is my least favorite of his stuff, and because after this is like Alice in Wonderland and stuff and like that visual styling. No thank you.
Is that your review?
No.
No.
For Alice in Wonderland, if this was the Alice in Wonderland podcast, that'll be next week on on dog shit.
On dog shit pod.
They did 2 of those movies, right? Come on now, people. What are we doing?
It sounds like a perfect inaugural episode for James's podcast. I've done this in the past, but maybe it's time to pass the mantle on to you screaming into the void.
Hey, this is the James of Screaming in the Void. We'll be back in a second.
Let's talk.
This episode brought to you by Squarespace. I almost feel like Tim Burton.
Wonderland sucks.
Tim Burton doing like the glass elevator. That would like kind of make sense, especially at this time. Like if he just done a fucking just straight up sequel and made it weird, like Tim Burton. I don't know. I feel like that might have made more sense.
But that's not to say that this didn't make sense for him to do this, right?
I'm just saying the stylings of it, because he's such a stylistic director, right. the style of it all, and then like to actually do an original story, because has a lot going for it. The newest one it's an original story, and it is an origin story that's free of a lot of. The fan service is just so nice. I like the fan service in the newest one. It was just enough, Yep. It gave him his trademark things that we all know and love about him, He says a few of his little lines and everything, but it's pretty subtle. There's like a motif of a few of the songs from the original as well. And you already like when that movie started, I was like, I'm such in a better place than this. Like minute it started, it was like
I'm so glad
you
enjoyed the movie.
It started with
man.
World like Pure Imagination or whatever was like in the background as like, you know, the
kind of
starting,
like this,
and I was like, oh my god, okay, thank God, okay, we're in. I just felt like in such better hands.
I'm so glad you liked the new movie, man. Because before we recorded this, I was like, dude, you should check this movie out.
I'm glad I did,
and I'm glad you did too, because it really was such a wonderful movie. Like I know I'm like coming off as such a fucking huge stan of that movie, but I don't give a shit because like Wonka rips. That's such a great movie. It has a heist in it. Level, It has all of it. It has like that movie is stuffed to the gills with shit to sink your teeth into, and
maybe you want candy for sure.
And it made me want candy so much.
Seeing that like robot make the chocolate at the beginning of Wonka, I was like, I don't want chocolate.
Right, but then him just talking about how he needs these in the new one, how he needs these like special ingredients to make these chocolates, and then the way that they look in his hand, and he's like, oh, it's in these big jars, and then these like fun colors and shapes, and
all the special ingredients totally now. Yeah, that's makes it special. Makes it makes it mean something. And it showed me that you don't need to just like, oh, I'm Wonka, so I need to be fucking weird. Like that's what that means, is I need to like really make some big decisions about making this character mine and trademark weird. And I was impressed with Chalamet's handling of it to be so he's just a charismatic person, and I think that went such a long way as well.
Naturally charismatic.
He shows emotion, and that vulnerable side of Wonka was a cool thing to see at that moment of him. Like, there's something about him like being a mentor to a child that would like worked really well in that dynamic, that called back to the better parts of like, the warm side of him. And it seems like, once he starts getting stolen from and starts hiring Loompa Loompas, then he gets a little more jaded. But I like the idea of like, well, can be a different guy. This is earlier in his life. He can be happy, like more like upstart sort of guy that's trying to
optimistic,
make his way, and
for better. Yeah.
And
childlike wonder.
Wow. All right. Well, yeah, I think we almost had a podcast about all three, but we definitely covered Tim Burton's enough. Is there a score that you would give, and any final thoughts? El Brandini?
Yeah, man. I just, when it comes to like revisiting a Wonka movie, this is the last on my list. The reason for it is because I just didn't have as much fun with it. I think if you were to take certain shots and scenes of this movie, it is really kind of like a marvel, if you will, of like special effects and setting, but it is just like consistently undercut by the people on screen are just like at odds, don't like each other, don't understand each other. There's man, it's weird. I don't know. I guess I didn't care for that. Oh God, I'm so like flustered right now. Like, there's like, I want to make sure that just at least for myself, that I recognize that there are some visual elements of this movie that I thought were cool and interesting, but by and large, my enjoyment of this as a whole movie, as a whole thing, was very little. I feel like it's because the movie didn't want me to like it. By and large, like wanted me to. It's like a conversation I wasn't allowed to be a part of, and it's giving me shit for trying to be like, hey, I want to hear what's going on. I'm going to give this movie a 55%.
Yeah, very fair score. I know what you mean. There's something that, and I'm trying to decipher why this movie is somewhat like watchable for me. It's like pretty watchable.
Some of it, yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out, is it because it's based on a story that I'm so familiar with and going through those motions of that story, whatever sort of adaptation is kind of nice. It's never been something that I've wanted to revisit since. I had this movie on DVD for whatever reason. It was just one that we'd throw in and have on because I think we liked the original so much, and this one was just the next thing. We liked Jack Sparrow and all that stuff. And really looking at it with a critical eye past the fact, I think I was like 15 when I saw it. I think it was still stepping into starting to be a little bit more critical about the movies that I would watch and everything.
Sure.
But I think just the fact that like, I like Johnny Depp, I like Tim Burton, I like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I like Willy Wonka. Why wouldn't I like this movie? And that's kind of how I felt at that time. And looking at it now and how outdated a lot of it is, and the performance of Johnny Depp, it's definitely going to get a subpar score for me. And I've talked a lot about it in this podcast. Some of the good things, definitely Freddie Highmore. There's conceptual things that I get why they tried so hard to make happen, because in their minds they looked at everything on the storyboard and they were like, this all looks great and we should do exactly this because we have the computers to make everything that we would ever want. We can pick one actor for an Oompa Loompa, and and that's something they didn't even completely do all the CGI, because they made him do like all those separate performances. Every single separate one you see, he did each separate one, and then they impose him on there, which is cool and all that. But
which is something
the time and effort that they take into that and the squirrels and all that other stuff is just like, I don't know. It just seems in the wrong place. The money doesn't seem to be on the screen in the best way. It looks expensive, but it doesn't look like satisfyingly good in a lot of ways. But Tim Burton is a good director and on a lot of other projects. So there's certain shots, like I was saying with Christopher Lee and Lee's house in the snow and all that, and a lot of houses, I guess, like the house.
Yeah,
the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, like house and stuff. Like
the houses, I had notes on that. I was like, oh, this house looks cool. Yeah, the inside and the outside.
Mm-hmm. Like in the factory, everything is just so fake and unpleasing and unsettling and not fun. That like there's the story when Grandpa goes back to the factory. They're like that. Looked kind of real and nice, like the old school style before the Oompa Loompas came in and all that. I'm getting too lost here in talking all about the movie again. I'm gonna do I'll do 48. Yeah, 46 or 48, something like that. Like a mid 40 sort of feels pretty good to me, partner. Pilgrim.
Which one do you pick?
48.
48. Cool. Yeah. I
48.
Get it, man. That's so funny that we were.
No, 49. I'm going to do 49.
Do 49. That's fine. This is another great example of why I love doing this with you, bud. Is like, we didn't really talk too much about our feelings about this movie. I think we're pretty good about not, getting into. Like, we'll text each other when we're watching these movies about certain things, but it isn't necessarily about how we feel by and large. It's like, oh, isn't this wild that this is a fact, or, this situation did you get to this, scene or whatever. And it's so fun that both of us kind of came to this and we're like, yeah, this is kind of, it's like the thing we've always talked about on this pod of how, even though this podcast is called Polarized,
I know.
Similar art scores end up being. Like, it's not.
We have similar.
If you're looking for a podcast
things.
where both of us are going to give polarizing scores every time, not the pod for you. What we're doing is we're taking polarizing movies and making them not polarized amongst two friends.
I enjoy that. I enjoy the process, and I enjoy people talking in that way rather than getting, or even because there's examples of us disagreeing too.
For sure.
But it's not like, we're like, you know what, Brandon? Fuck fuck you, man. And
yeah,
you like
you. Yeah.
The fact that you like this movie makes me question our friendship. So I mean,
but when's the next pod recording?
All for that content, baby. We need the content. That's why we do it. I think the Last Jedi I think would be the closest, and that's even one where it's like, no, I don't like love that movie, but I do like it, and even that I feel like is a hot take to even kind of like that movie.
Right.
So there's probably a few others out there. Santa, the Mel Gibson Santa one. I didn't like that one. You and Dave had a good time.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was the bad guy.
I loved it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you didn't like some of the Disney stuff. Yeah, there's stuff. There's spots.
Stuff. No, there's stuff. Hey, anybody? Check out our back catalog. There's plenty of episodes.
If you want to hear, one where we're just yelling at each other the entire time. That's what happens. That's what we do.
Do our scores get put into the description at all? I guess that would probably not be a good idea.
No, I should go back and just tabulate them all. I know Blarge was doing it. Blarge Senior, El Corey was doing it for a bit, but
I guess it's not I guess that's not.
That would be nice to have a wiki, a polarized pod wiki.
Oh yeah, have a little Excel doc that we were.
I could do it. I could probably do it.
Yeah, we can do it. Yeah, let's figure that out. But
just be
that's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And that's Polarize the Pod.
That's right, baby. Let's talk about what we're doing next time. It is a movie from 10 years prior, a 95 movie starring Andy Garcia. And
I'm so excited about this movie.
Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead.
What a cumbersome title. And then it is also so indicative of the movie.
Once again,
are you going to read that? Yeah.
Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. 37% from critics, a 72 from audience. I can read the description. Ex-crook Jimmy the Saint Tasnia, Andy Garcia, is trying his best to go legitimate until he's dragged back into the world of crime for one last seemingly simple mission. All Jimmy and his eccentric cronies have to do is intimidate their target. But they make a disastrous series of mistakes that result in the death of a woman connected to a powerful gangster. Before long, Mr. Steve Buscemi, a notorious assassin who never slips up, is sent to take down Jimmy and his partners. Mr. I like that. Box office gross, 232,000. Okay.
Yeah, baby.
Andy Garcia, Christopher Lloyd, William Forsythe. I think Christopher Walken's in here somewhere.
Oh,
too.
Walken's in it. Yeah, and he's
Balk,
loose as a motherfucker.
Weinstein production, whatever.
Yeah, let's not do
it. All right, well, we'll see you guys next time. If you want to see us record live whenever we do this, it's on twitch.tv/polarizedpod. You can send us a line at gmail.com/polarizethepod or gmail.com at polarizethepod. Polarizethepod@gmail.com. Polarizethepod@gmail.com. There's one other thing. Oh, yeah. Rate and review on Apple Podcast would be awesome. More of those would be sweet. We love you all. Brandon, is there anything else?
No, I love you all as well. That's my thing.
I'm glad we got that in. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.